So in 2009, Ubisoft released a video game called James Cameron Avatar, the game. Now, this game, I don't necessarily understand what it was actually designed to serve. Perhaps James Cameron was open to having a video game developer develop a game that went alongside his movie. And it's as if his history is about to write itself again. We're seeing that there's going to be another Avatar game that has a 2022 release date, which somehow is going to coincide with one of the new Avatar movie releases. So we're going to look at all of this, and we're going to also pay attention to some of the player concerns that have cropped up since the Avatar game was released. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. We do gaming discussions across the interwebs, and we talk about a lot of these things as a community. So when the video is over, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts about the situation at hand. So when this Avatar game was released, I didn't even know about it. I think the whole rave about the Avatar movie was just so huge that, in my opinion, or from my perspective at that time, there was no room to worry about a game that was actually going with the movie. Now, there are people who have mentioned that they did enjoy this Avatar game, and I actually do own a copy, which is interesting. Once I found out that Massive Ubisoft was actually working on an Avatar game, I went online and I looked for a copy of the PlayStation 3 version, and I actually got it, and I started to play it, and it made me start to miss modern gaming real fast. Now, along the course of this video, I'm going to switch back and forth from another game that the company that's developing the new Avatar game is actually done and, completed development on, which is Tom Clancy's The Division 2. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is Division 2 footage. So let's look at these concerns that the interwebs, pretty much has record of. Basically, if you go to the Avatar reveal YouTube video on the Ubisoft North America YouTube page and also on the PlayStation page, you're going to see some of these concerns. You're going to read the comments. You're going to see that players do have some valid concerns in some areas, and potentially many have not dealt with Massive in the past. So what are these concerns that players have? What exactly is causing players to have some reservations with the Avatar game? The very first one I was able to narrow down was the fact that Avatar, this new game, which is Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, is going to be a first-person shooter. Now, many people have pretty much gone ahead and said, I prefer the third-person genre. I don't know if this is actually for me. In fact, old fans of The Division, which is Massive's current, game right now that is live, they actually have two games that are live, Division 1 and Division 2. They're still receiving, support. These games are third-person games. So for them to try to go on a first-person side of things, even the old Division fans may not necessarily, in my opinion anyways, want to deal with an FPS game. But that is not to say, that is an end-all be-all. But yes, this is a major concern for a whole lot of players around the interwebs. Now, here is my own take towards this particular issue. I'm not necessarily a first-person shooter, I would say aficionado. I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters. In fact, I prefer third-person shooters because there's a different level of experience. Some people have even said that, we live our lives in FPS, so it's a little hard for them to want to come to a video game and play an FPS game, and I get it. But, over the course of the past few years, a few first-person shooter games have changed my mind, and those games are Metro Exodus and Far Cry 4. These are FPS games that I played for extensive periods of time that really did change my perspective and help me realize that a video game could be done very well regardless of it being first person or third person. So I usually these days don't ever lock down my preference anymore, because if you even ask a lot of people who are playing The Division, which is Massive's game that they're working on, they'll tell you that they used to be first person lovers. They love the first person genre. And then when this game came out, which was a third person game, they eventually found themselves in a place where they were playing a third person game. So this was pretty much my own take on this, including that of some other people that I've had discussions with. And I think what's going to happen is if this becomes a deal breaker, then I think if anyone might be on the fence, it will have to be a thing where the mechanics, the gameplay, and a whole lot of other things are attractive enough to bring people to this particular Avatar game. So that is the very first concern that I did see. The second concern that I saw was the nature of the game. So the Avatar game of 2009 9 looked like a single player story driven experience. I mean, I played the very first introductory mission where you walk around, your first few objectives, go meet this person, go talk to that person, yada, yada, yada. You know how it is. And I just pretty much kind of explored exactly what the nature of this game is. The nature of the game seems like it is a straight up story driven single player experience. Now, Massive Ubisoft made the Division 1 and the Division 2, and these two games were live service games and were able to amass over 40 million players in total. Now, if they go for the Avatar looter shooter project and they kind of make the game that way, they have the potential of bringing in a few more million people into that ecosystem that continue to play the game and then over time build upon that number. That might be a very huge proposition for the movie company Lightstorm Studios that's actually producing the movie. They may want to expose this brand to much more people. Now, yes, Avatar came out in 2009 and some of us, we watched it. Some of us maybe didn't pay attention to it. But again, it's not something that has been fresh in a lot of people's minds. People just thought that was going to be the only Avatar movie. And that one, according to your preference or whatever you think, some people thought it was great. Some people thought it wasn't so great. In my opinion, I thought it was a decent CGI movie. I'd never really seen CGI done that way. But overall, the movie plot to me was not too impressive. I mean, it's not really something that we haven't or hadn't seen by 2009. I mean, I'm somebody who came from the Blade and Matrix generation where people had to take on different forms or go into the whole drill. So it was nothing really new. Now, if they want to go with that looter shooter, then it's going to be something where a lot of people will say, no, I don't want to deal with this. People will basically, in my opinion, reject that kind of a premise. They could also go perhaps the Far Cry version where it's an open world, because Pandora is pretty much going to be the highlight of this game. I mean, if the subtitle Frontiers of Pandora has not clued you in, and I think that's something that you should pay attention to. They may go the Far Cry way where, you go through an open world eventually as you're going through the regular Ubisoft thing where you're possessing the world and moving over and over. Now, if you wonder if Massive has any experience working on a Far Cry game, I don't think that's the issue. The issue would probably be which Far Cry game they've worked on, because they actually have worked on a Far Cry game, and I think that was Far Cry 2. So they do have some experience on all of that. So that's not necessarily a big deal. And again, if you also kind of say, okay, what other methodology could they employ? They could employ the Skyrim methodology, which is a continuously evolving world that allows for you to continue to grow stronger and push away threats, base building, character, strength, and fantasy, all of those things that Skyrim games bring that allow for you as an individual player to just enjoy the world and blow thousands of hours on there. So that's something that could go into it. But then I know again that Massive Ubisoft is more than likely not going to be satisfied without bringing some sort of a co-op aspect to this game. And who knows, they may not have that, but I think any of these different directions that they decide to go with when it comes to their Avatar game is going to really cause for a lot of players to make the decision whether or not they want to invest their time in the game. And then another concern was, the regular, I would say throwing shade at Ubisoft, which is when you see a trailer, the very first thing a lot of people say is, oh, it's going to be a downgrade by the time it comes out. Well, I don't think that's really an issue right now. I mean, what you're seeing on the screen is Ubisoft Massive's most recent game that they made in 2019. In fact, I wish I could show you footage of the first game, The Division 1, which came out in 2016, and you will be very shocked as to how much detail they were able to deliver for a video game, especially a looter shooter, a game that had a continuous grind and kind of like, continuous player participation. And on consoles, the game did not necessarily look very well until the next gen upgrade. So people who play on the Xbox, and are on the Series X and S, you guys got to see the Division 1 in full 60 frames per second. With Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora coming out on the next gen systems, I think that's the kind of quality we can expect. It's not going to be coming out on the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. It's going to be going for the PS5, the Xbox Series S, Series X, Stadia, all of the other platforms that will allow for the graphic fidelity to come out. So I don't know if a graphical downgrade is anything we should be talking about right now. Technology has caught up immensely, especially with these consoles. The question is, are people going to be able to get their hands on these consoles when this game comes out, as well as many other games? And then finally, the concern is it's a Ubisoft product. Some people have said, oh, it's Ubisoft. I don't know what I can do with this. I don't know if I'm going to want to participate in this. And the truth is, Ubisoft right now is in a place where they're continuing to try to mold their own PR image. So for me, I think that they need to continue to do more hard work. I've never necessarily paid much attention to a corporation as anything more than a lifeless entity that its only goal is just a driver to make profit. So I treat them as that way. I don't expect that they owe me anything and I don't owe them anything. And that's kind of how I run the package. Now, yes, granted, for those of us who make YouTube videos, companies like Ubisoft allow for you as an individual creator to be able to use their games and use their content to make derivative works and all of the above. But, it doesn't mean we owe them anything. It just means that they're allowing for it. In fact, the truth is we still give them exposure and coverage. So it's not necessarily like they're doing it out of the greatness of their hearts. It could be, but they're actually enjoying that particular exposure and fandom. So knowing that, I kind of go into these things with kind of the mindset where I say, if you're not going to be someone who's a YouTuber, it might be wise for you to actually just say, I'm just going to watch and see how this plays out. This is something that I usually advise, a lot of people here in the community is wait for the YouTubers to take one for the team. We YouTubers, we can tell you that we have a bunch of these new games that come out that sit in our library that just don't appeal to us as well as many other gamers and even some of our audience members. I can for sure state that Godfall did not make it past the 5-hour mark after I played it for a little bit. Not because the game wasn't good, it just wasn't appealing in the sense that the games that my audience loves are the community-based games that we can matchmake, games that we can get into a stream and run missions together. Godfall didn't necessarily have all of those things initially when the game was first released, and so the game pretty much just kind of fell out the window. So these concerns are valid concerns. These are my opinions about all of this. When it comes to what Ubisoft is wanting to do with this Avatar project, I don't think the game is going to look bad. In fact, I think the game is going to look pretty good. It just, for me, happens to be what kind of game is it going to be? Is it going to be another looter shooter? Is it going to be a Skyrim kind of game? Is it going to be a single-player experience? These things are going to pretty much help me evaluate how I intend to actually deal with this particular game. But either way, I'll be somebody who will be looking out for the game. I'll be talking to the audience about the game. And come when that time reaches for the game to be released, hopefully nothing goes crazy and we're here and we experience the game and we'll be able to judge for ourselves what kind of a product that Ubisoft Massive has brought when it comes time to the full release and all of the above. All right, I'm already yapping and talking nonsense. Talk to you guys in another video. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, if you have any comments, if you enjoyed the video or whatever it is, or what are your thoughts, share in the comment section. Peace out.